Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. This is SirAshtown. We are here live at Charlie's Collectible Show for their Lorcana 13K. There are over 319 players in today's tournament, and this is an exciting time to be here as we are going into the Set 7 meta. I'm here joined by Jebas over also casting with me. How you doing, Jebas?
I'm doing very well.
Well, we have had a lot of competition here today, and it has just been a pleasure to be streaming this. We are also offering this in Spanish and in Chinese. So if you have another language that you speak or friends who speak those languages and are interested in Lorcana, we are going to put those links in the description for you. But very exciting. Here we are with Logan from World Class Cards, which we're going to be at World Class Cards next weekend for their Lorcana 10K weekend. 5K Saturday, 5K Sunday, streaming all of that coverage for you. Logan piloting a Ruby Sapphire list versus Ezekiel piloting a Amethyst Ruby list. And here we go.
Now, I believe that this is an Amethyst Ruby locations deck. There are quite a few of them. We do have a ferry ship in play already, which is bad news for LSP Terrace, and also probably bad news for Logan here.
Oh, another location too.
And the Forbidden Mountain. That's 2 locations.
I don't know if I'm familiar with this build at all. Have you seen Ruby Amethyst that plays locations?
It puts these really mid locations into play, and then they just gain lore every turn until the opponent loses. So that's generally the strategy with it, I think.
5-0 sounds like a great strategy.
It's pretty good if people aren't prepared to deal with locations. Maui's have been taking a backseat even in the Ruby decks, and they just have not been getting any respect for good reason. I mean, we haven't really seen a ton of spectacular locations in recent memory here. But, they are still very real, and we'll have to see how many of them end up in play.
That's something to really think about every single set, that a good deck builder will look back to the past, see the cards and the play styles, and say, is this viable? Is this something that I can surprise people with? Is it something people have forgotten? Is this powerful and people just don't play around it anymore? And here we go. We see Logan here with that new McScrooge. Same McScrooge, but the Scrooge McDuck. This card has been making a lot of waves this set. A lot of people have only been playing 2 of, but as they've been playing it, we've seen just the advantage that it can give a player on the board. It is a really strong card.
Yep, runs out of hand Sisu here. Also something that has not been seeing a ton of play recently outside of sort of the Ruby Amethyst type of list. But it is still very, very strong card, especially with so many decks looking to sort of fill their hand with stuff. It definitely makes the brawls and such look a little embarrassing. Now, this Vitalisphere will likely be useful in dealing with a location later. However, right now, it is just another item that likely will be flavershammed if we don't need it.
Ooh, and here's Ezekiel with another location.
It's like a library. Only 2 cards in hand for Logan, so the Sisu is a little small. It's big enough to take out the Tipo, take just 1 damage. And I believe that we don't quite have enough to, even with the Vitalisphere, to take out this library. Library being 8, we've got 6, 7 with the Flaversham. We could... we're 1 ink short, I think, of being able to Medusa favorably here. So we're just going to opt for the Vitalisphere first. To draw 2 cards with the Flaversham. And we're likely just going to take out the other location, which I think is fair. Now, we have a lot of cards in hand, so the Sisu is quite a bit stronger, but I think we've resigned ourselves to not worrying too much about that for right now. I don't believe that it can be Medusa this turn.
Yeah, the downside of just having more cards in hand, it's like, gosh, I want to draw so much more, but the more you do, the more this Sisu is just ready to challenge in.
Yeah, 1 ink is all you get for the turn there, Logan. We could play a crab and get back 2 items. I believe that there's both a popsicle and a Vital Sphere in there. Oh, sorry, Ice Block and Vital Sphere, rather. I think that's fine. It does allow them to gain a little bit of lore with the library, but library is not a ton of pressure on its own. It does give the ability to get card advantage in trades. Like if they trade with the Scrooge here, they do get to draw an extra card. And now this, I think, is the turn where we'll see what this deck is capable of doing now that it's sort of in the mid-game stages. Draws a card with Rabbit. Probably just Rabbit in the library, sure.
Yeah, I like this library. I mean, I played a lot of Blurple during the last set, and just having characters on that you're okay with questing, getting challenged, that way you can draw extra cards, but especially when it's a Merlin Rabbit. It just feels so good drawing those 2 cards.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is a world where we use this Tamatoa to just quest and play another item for free. We could potentially even just draw additional cards with the Flaversham, but the longer that we do sort of leave these in play, the worse it ends up being for us. So we play the Popsicle. Popsicle let us draw a card here. Looks like we do the Dragon. And draw 2 more cards. Makes sense. Now, I know that Logan does have Kuzco's in the deck. And we do have enough ink to cast a Kuzco if we rip one off the top here. Alternatively, we just develop a few items, gain some additional ability to interact with the board, and then we set up a turn where we can take out the library with that Vital Sphere. Which I think is most likely going to happen since we do have the Sisu in hand as well. Depends on how much we care about this Rabbit this turn. And how much we care about the other cards in our hand if we want to get rid of them with this Quill. It looks like we do not care how many cards they have in hand, which I think is probably fine. The reality is that we're both drawing a lot of cards here, and what we need to worry about is the lore pressure. We can't win the game as the bigger deck if the game is over, so...
It's a really good point that you're making, Jebas, that there does come a point where you got to say, hey, I have my strategy, I know what I'm doing, I don't really mind what my opponent's playing because they can continue to draw, and I just need to get to where I want to on the board state.
Alright, so they opt to Fox. They don't really advance the board state for themselves at all, but they do take out that Tamatoa so that they can't continue to get free items. I would suspect that this library is going to be taken out with this Vital Sphere this turn, one way or another. We'll probably start with the Popsicle to draw 1 card first, and then see what options we have to really deal with that. If there's another Tamatoa in there, that would probably be the best way to manage it, since it gives us additional card advantage while still giving us those the ability to take it out. So it did look like we ripped a Kuzco. I would say that the library is probably going to get Kuzco'd here then.
Yeah, what a great card to take care of that library versus you spending time trying to challenge into it. Just want to give a quick shout out to those in the 20 Lore Pro community who are watching over on YouTube. We want to thank you all so much for joining us here. We are over about close to like 300 viewers over on YouTube. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We are watching y'all in the chat along with Twitch. So thank you all so much for joining us here for Charlie Collectible Show Lorcana 13K.
So opting to sail first, still going up to the 6 ink to get the Cuzco. But because we have the ability to add an extra ink to the board, it will help us out a little bit in the future turns. Now that we have the dragon, as well as the Vital Sphere, we can take out basically any other location. If they're looking to B-prep here, that's fine, I think. Generally, I would say that the blue-red deck is heavily favored on just like a raw board like this, given that the quality of card in the deck for each individual card is just going to be higher in the deck that's playing like 8 and 9 drops versus the one that's playing a bunch of 1 and 2 drop locations.
In addition to that, I mean, that's a lot of ink on Logan's side of the field.
All right, opt to Flaversham, draw a couple more cards. Now we find the Popsicles. A little bit late to the party, but still very welcome to find even at this stage in the game.
Debating on those items are always great when you want a Tamatoa to bring them back from the board and just replay them, and reading cards in your hand. Really great to have just a Popsicle back on the board.
Debating on the ink here, I would just ink this Quill. It doesn't seem like Quill is what we're doing this game at this point. And then you can also still play that Popsicle. Pass is also acceptable here.
Here's Logan kind of fanning out his banish pile that way he can see his items and figure out what he wants to bring back.
So Goat goes up to 7. There's a library with a Goat in the library. That's fine. The Dragon is a little bit of an awkward solution to the Goat problem. Because they do get to draw the card off the library. You still get to take out the library with the Vital Sphere if we still had one. We did end up eating it to find the other items. But it's just awkward in sequencing wise because they still get the extra card. Not that big of a deal though. Possibly opting to keep the Fishbone Quill just in case you need to double ink with the coil to deal with a problem.
I don't think he was trying to sing with this Flaversham.
He quested and got rid of the Popsicle.
Gotcha.
So, just trying to figure out what the play is in this turn. There's a lot of lines that are all decent. Some better than others. You can Crab, hit it for 7. Don't really love that. With the Vital Sphere, you can play the Ice Block. You can shrink it, ink something, shrink it again, and then Sisu. The small Sisu.
The latter looks like what he's about to try to go for.
It depends on the breakpoints for the other cards in hand, like if we're able to do more things or not. Ink does that, draws a card, goes up to 8. Again, not that big of a deal. I would expect the Popsicle for sure, which if you were going to play that, you should play the Popsicle before doing any of the other game actions. Not that big of a deal either. Again, we have a lot of resources to work with, so it is okay to sequence some of them a little bit less optimally.
Yeah, for that sequencing of playing Popsicle first, you're doing it in this case, I believe, just so that we have more information. Is that normally why you tend to want to play that Popsicle first, just to have
Correct.
more cards?
Knowing what was in Logan's hand, we didn't have another play as a follow-up after the Sisu anyway. At least not one that was costing all of our ink. So we could have decided, hey, let's play the Popsicle first, since that's already on the list of stuff to do. And then after that line is done, like after you already did that, then you can have more information to work with. What if we rip a Cusco? Then we can Cusco first before removing it. It just gives us other information to support our plays better. So leveraging the library with the broom, this is a pretty common sort of newer thing that has been going on with the library since it came out. I guess not newer, I'm just old. But new relative to maybe last set or perhaps a little bit before that, where they're really going out of their way to leverage the brooms and the Diablos with the library to get 2 cards, 4 cards out of the resources that you're going through.
I mean, it's definitely not a bad play at all when you have a character on the library that's either when it leaves, like we saw earlier with the rabbit, or from the broom to help you draw an extra card. That is a great strategy to see when using that. And if you're going to play a bunch of locations and you're in Amethyst, I mean, the library is a great one to add. I wonder if they're even playing the Queen's Castle. We hadn't seen that. It kind of fell out of popularity a little bit last set. We didn't see it as much.
All right, we got another Cusco, which the Cuscos have looked stellar in this matchup, really bullying these libraries.
And this is his second Cusco that we've seen, so I wonder how many he has in his list.
From what we saw in the previous game and this one, I would say 2. Based on we've seen most of Logan's deck at this point. Between the red-blue game, the mirror last round and this round, I would guess that there are 2 Cuscos in the list. I could be wrong, but we've seen the majority of the deck, and I don't think he's popped up enough for 3 of them to be likely.
Yeah, 2 feels like a nice spot to be in, especially when you want to take out items, but he is a higher end card. And I guess now with this Ruby Amethyst list running around with locations, that's not a bad viability.
All right, we shrink the goat, and we're going to send everything to the Shadow Realm here. Ooh, we decide to shift so we can get some lore in. I like that play a lot. Ezekiel up to 11 and does get to draw 2 cards. Kind of the flavor of this deck here. Now, I actually like just dumping the rest of our ink into Cusco here instead of passing. But it's fine. We don't care about Fox, right?
We know Ruby Amethyst doesn't do foxes too often.
For those that are unfamiliar with Cusco, if you'd bring him up for us here, Cusco has 2 things on it, not just one. The main ability is that it is able to ink an item or location face down and exerted. But the other ability is you can pay 4 and gives your characters resist until the start of your next turn. Now, obviously it costs 4. I don't believe that we had 12 extra ink to protect from the Maui. However, there is a world where there are slightly smaller rush characters that you can just protect your stuff from enough with just the resist, right? So jams, another couple threats. I believe that is the hearts, right? King of Hearts. What is that card? Oh no, that's the cards, right? The new one here.
To look.
That is, I know what it is here. Card soldiers, right? No. Well, no, I don't know what it is. I thought that was the new card soldiers, but I could just be wrong. Somebody will correct me in the chat. I'm just going to keep getting it wrong. Oh, yes. No, that is the 2-drop one, right? That's the it's a 1/4 that if it has damage, it's a 4/4. That's the 2-drop cards. So I'm right. I'm just at the wrong color cost. Yeah, sorry, that's Queen of Hearts. When this character does damage, she gets +3. So I wasn't terribly far off. I just couldn't remember if it was the cards or the Queen of Hearts. So it is actually Queen of Hearts. 2-drop. Find it. There you go.
Good call out on that, Jebas.
I knew what it did. I just couldn't remember if it was a 2-drop because I hadn't seen it very often. It's the first time that we've seen it today. I believe that the game is just over with the dime here. If we're at 16 from Logan's side.
Is that another dime in hand too?
It is a dime in hand.
Oh, even
and they show the lucky dimes so that we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's
the reason that you don't dime in that spot is if it doesn't win that immediate turn, you can just protect it and then wait. You don't have to run it out. You can make it so that you are not going to perish. I know that Red Purple has no way of dealing with items. However, if you want to make sure that you are always alive, you deal with your opponent's things first.
Yeah, Logan doing a great job there. I missed his last round, but clearly his list is doing well for him as he's here at 5-0 and going into round 6 here, game 2 against Ezekiel. Jebas, we had an interesting question from our YouTube chat because this is something that we were talking about earlier. Is Logan, and I've done this in other card games, but I have fanned out my discard or banish pile so that way I can see the items of the characters' cards in my discard. Have you seen that in gameplay, and how is that looking like here in Lorcana?
So there's no way to take notes in this game. So the only way to get information, especially in the, paper card space, is that you have to look at it, right? So there's a double-edged sword for fanning out your discard, which is that your opponent also then gets to see your discard without necessarily touching it. If they have a card in their hand or some way to interact with the discard, or they're concerned about something, they might be able to see your discard and, have that information readily visible to them, assuming that they can't just remember it, by just glancing over at it. And then you don't necessarily always know that they are doing that. If you do stack up your discard, like a lot of players tend to do, then your opponent, you as well, right? So this is the double-edged sword part. But in order to know that you're looking at the discard, you have to actually look at the discard, right? You have to, ask, hey, can I look at your discard? You pick it up and look at it. Now, the same is true of you as the person doing that with their discard, because let's say that you have a Tomato in hand. If you want to know if you have the items to be able to bring them back, you now have to touch your discard too. So it does work both ways a little bit. It's just information, right?
And that's something I think can be both beneficial, like you were saying, and your opponent, something that they can be mindful of, but you can always at any time look at your discard pile if you need to. So
absolutely.
Those are things that you should be aware of as a player, just the odds of you getting into the next card that you need in order to help you finish out the game.
And sometimes, like, fanning it out, especially at certain points in the game, saves you mental energy from having to remember all the cards, because you can just look, right? And over a long tournament, in a single match that may not matter, but over a very long tournament, it can matter a ton. So start off with a 1-drop, in this case a broom, into the Forbidden Mountain, which is a slow but steady lore gainer. I expect that to gain at least 3 or 4 this game, especially being on the play from Ezekiel's side. It is very difficult to get off the table comfortably, at least for a little bit. What's our best case? We play a Scrooge maybe next turn, and then we Vitalsphere it. I'm not even sure that that's great of a line, but that's about the only way to get it out of the field soon. Assuming no Maui, of course, because Maui can always rumble it and bop it.
That's something you got to think about too. Is it worth me using my resources on this location when there could be something like a library later on, or who knows what other locations Ezekiel is playing right now?
I think that's how this red-purple location deck gets you. Is you're like, oh, I don't really care that much about this medium location, and oh, there's this other kind of medium location. And then all of a sudden, they've gained 8 lore over the course of the game, and that's not any different than, like, just a character that had quested that long that you just ignored. You know, that sets up red-purple to be able to close out with goats now, all of a sudden, because they gained all this extra lore throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, that's dangerous to think about, because there have been times when I'm playing that I think about location, I'm like, oh, I can worry about that later, and then you realize later is kind of too late. It's already passed. It's for lore gain later.
Yeah, and I think Logan recognizes that, like, this is a lore gain battle, right? Red-purple is just trying to put things on the field, sticky, difficult to interact with threats, locations, characters that draw cards when they enter or when they leave, so that the interaction that you're using is just not good. It's just not at a high premium. So, like, you need to battle against just them gaining too much lore. I don't even know if Logan is playing any Mauis at all. Another ferry ship.
Wow, a Sisu and a ferry ship. That's
pretty good run out for this turn. That's a lot of locations, and with no Maui, no Scar, no large rush character to sort of interact with what's going on here, this is a lot of lore pressure that we're just not dealing with very favorably at all. So we do have the ability to take out one of those locations this turn. As long as we ink, we can play this Scrooge, I believe, that we have in hand. I don't know, maybe that's a sail. Oh, that's worse.
Yeah, I think that was a sail, that is.
That's worse. I thought that was a Scrooge. That would have actually been helpful here.
Tamatoa. Man, and he has a big Sisu. Wow, a lot of big characters in his hand.
Are we thinking about... So here's what I think we might be considering is play Sail, draw a card, double ink, play Flaversham, draw 2 cards. Which is not awesome, given our options to ink. Our hand is bad, and we're not in a great spot here. But I think it's the only way for us to take out this Sisu and maybe still pressure the locations. Like, it would not surprise me if we have this Sisu swing into one of the Forbidden Mountains this turn, and then get 1 damage on it, and then next turn we shift Sisu with the intention of trying to just bop it for 5. Yeah, so we do double ink and play the Flaversham, draw 2 cards here. And it's just another Sisu. We just have 10 Sisus in hand that are not good here.
That is best, tough.
At best, they're okay.
We can handle 1 or 2, but the third one is that's a lot of unink, and also when the board states like this with locations is tough. Those Sisus might just need to get played just to start swinging in.
Yeah, it is very likely that, if possible, that we're going to want to play this coil to take out the Sisu. I think we have too many cards in hand for this shift Sisu to actually deal with the... So we just opt straight up to shift it, and... Okay. Yeah, I think that's the line that we have, and maybe just ink Tipo here. Probably not use the Flower Sham at all.
Yeah, at this point, those locations were already doing so much. The Sisu, not taking out any characters when you need to get rid of them is kind of what you have to do with how his hand's looking.
We could always just quest for one, but that feels kind of middling. I really want to use this Vital Sphere as a way to rush a character. Like, I almost feel like it's pretty important. We're just putting 3 damage onto the ferry ship. Okay. I don't love that, but I can understand the vision. For my money, I think I would rather have just challenged the Forbidden Mountain to put 1 damage on it. So that a follow-up Sisu... Oh, Dragonfire!
Oh my goodness.
That's real nice here, and now we don't have that Vital Sphere any longer to challenge at all.
Yeah, I like that Dragonfire here, especially when, I mean, Ezekiel's Inkwell, I haven't counted, but he's not ramping, so Dragonfire 1 of 2 of is pretty good when you just need to get rid of big characters that can challenge.
So
These
here was
locations are just eating him a lot.
a little awkward sequencing, I think. I don't know if it's going to matter a ton, but I don't really like inking the coil first and then casting the vision. And this is the same popsicle before doing other things when you have the ink, just for more information. If there was a better card to ink, which we know that there's only Sisus, ideally you should still vision first and then make your ink choice. So that is an awful lot of chip lore coming on from the other side. We can take out both of the locations this turn if we want. Are we just questing to play this? Maybe we don't have enough ink to do the Sisu plus the Vital Sphere. No, it looks like we only have 8, so we do need to quest here. We'll be able to take out the Forbidden Mountain as well as this Shonabog's followers. So we have Tamatoa play the Vital Sphere for free. We will cast our Big Sisu, run it out here, and challenge into the slightly larger of the 2 locations. Ink and pass, so up to 15 just from the ferry ship. A quick untap from Logan, feeling like there's a chance that the corner has been turned here. Challenge, go up to 5. I would have liked playing the popsicles before making those choices. Again, just more information.
Yeah, I see what you're saying on that, Jebas. That I was trying to think of Logan's background in cards because he used to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And shifted over into Lorcana.
Is that
he played
Scrooge?
DC deck building too.
Is that a Scrooge McDuck in hand? I think I would ink the Scrooge and just play the dime. Yeah, I think that's a respectable line here. There's a world where if you want to rely on this crab to be your carry, but it's more likely that that is what they were inking towards. So now you kind of just play out these Sisus and gain 3 until the game is over.
Wow, talk about taking a tough situation that Logan was in earlier with his hand and making the most out of what he has. And there's another Sisu.
And if it's not a Be Prepared off the top, it's pretty rough. So Diablo is a card, but a Diablo on its own is not necessarily a massive threat here. Now, I would say we certainly want to kill or banish the Diablo here if possible. We have a brawl to do that. So we go up to 17 off the lucky dime. Banish that, they get to draw a card. And now it is rush or bust, and there's no rush, so that will be it for round 6, leading into round 7. Logan is undefeated here with this take on Ruby Sapphire sort of control. The Cuscos did a lot of work this game dealing with those libraries.
I am really impressed right now, not only with Logan's gameplay, the way he was able to manage the board state at where he is at with what he has in his hand, but also with Ezekiel. I mean, he's 5-0 with this Ruby Amethyst locations list. We kind of saw how those locations, when you have multiples of them, even though they're low and they just gain you one turn, can really chip away. And like you were saying earlier, Jebas, you're still playing the Amethyst bounce package, so you have the goats, you have things that can allow you to gain that free lore to finish off the game. So, really a great match here in round 6 between Logan and Ezekiel.
Yeah, the fact that Cusco was able to deal with 2 libraries in the same game, normally the benefit of library is that it has 8 willpower, which is a lot. I mean, 8 is a big number. 7, even from the Queen's Castle once upon a time, felt like a lot, but it was more manageable. Breakpoint wise, 8 is just a lot. So you really need to either 2-for-1 yourself a lot of times, or have a card like this, which just straight up deals with it as a thing. But you're also developing a threat. So not only are you dealing with a big problem, you're also adding a reasonable threat to the board.
This has been a great round 6 here at Collectible Show's Lorcana 13K. And Jebas, we really appreciate you and your analysis and your commentary that you've provided. It's been a really great tournament so far. We are going into round 7 here in just a little bit. It'll be the last round for today's tournament here Saturday. And tomorrow we will be live around 10 a.m. EST for rounds 8 and 9 of Swiss. And then we will cut into the top 8. We will have all of these tournament rounds up for you on YouTube later on this week, as well as the matches from our community pro, Zan Saeed, over on Katie, the Lumineers Inn, or sorry, the Lorekeeper's Inn. We're really excited to have Katie with us and the Lorekeeper's Inn. She's over there commentating, I think right now with Wonderland and Clara. They've been providing some great coverage for Zan Saeed's games, and to kind of see his journey. I believe before round 6 he was 4-1 heading into it, and we'll have all of his rounds up on our YouTube later on this week as well for you to watch and to enjoy at your pleasure. Again, 20 Lore Pro, we will be live next weekend over at World Class Cards in Wisconsin for their Lorcana 10K weekend. 5K Saturday, 5K Sunday. So lots of Lorcana, lots of competitive tournaments here in set 7. Lots to go. We're going to see if we can go over to Zan's match and see if we can catch a little bit of their commentary. They might be done though. But let's see if we can swap over there and catch the action.